Hello everyone. Today I did a psychic reading on Elon Musk. He's been in the news quite a lot recently, and I've heard different takes on him, so I thought I'd do a reading myself. Um, just to save some time, I already did the reading, so I'm not going to be doing it live with my eyes closed and going through the whole process. I already did it, and I wrote down some notes so that I can kind of speed through it, make a shorter video, because I know you don't all want to watch a 30-minute video necessarily, or a 45-minute video sometimes. So, for Elon Musk, when I tuned into him, the first thing that I was getting from him was this sense of nervousness, which I was not expecting to get from Elon Musk whatsoever. But when I tune into his safety, security, survival, well, his first layer of his aura, that is, I get this nervousness and this doubt. And this doubt has to do with him and looking at the direction he's taken as a child. And something about looking back at his whole life and there being this uncertainty about if he's done the right thing, if he's gone the right direction in life, specifically as a child. And it's like he wasn't able to experience himself or experience his life as a child in the way that he would want. And it was almost like he was too serious and he didn't really have the childhood that he wanted. It was almost like he was locked up within his own sense of safety and security, to the point where he's like kind of like created his own box and he's stuck in it and he can't get out. And this has to do with just missing out on fun, not being able to, have that childhood playfulness that he just missed out on. And he's kind of feeling doubt and instability, and this is creating this lack of, well, his ability to express his joyfulness, specifically around women, and how it's kind of made him kind of awkward towards women on some level. I'm not saying he is awkward towards women, I'm just saying there's an energy about him that is blocking him from his full potential. And he's aware of this. So he's, instead of being able to connect with people just kind of naturally and spontaneously, there's this self-doubt and it's just like stuck there. And it's like when somebody tells you, you're a certain way, and so you kind of take that on. And so it's almost like he's preventing himself from being able to connect on this more human kind of level that's just kind of the normal thing that he kind of missed out on, and he's kind of coming to terms with that more and more. When I asked what his next step would be for this, I got that in order for him to kind of overcome this, he would need to learn to pay attention to others rather than, living in his head, and like he's just like stuck in that. But by being able to completely just give up on that, kind of take this leap of faith, so to speak. I saw somebody like jumping off of like a tall ledge into a water, like, jumping into a lake, and taking that faith of that leap of faith, so to speak, to be able to just completely, be able to just completely listen to other people and not have to worry about all this internal dialogue of how he is and what he's kind of been programmed, and to be able to just like open his guard up a little bit and not worry about it, and have the faith that it might work out if he just opens up to other people. Not that he needs to open up, more that he needs to focus on other people rather than thinking the only way to get over it is by solving the problem in front of him. Rather than trying to solve it, he needs to leap forward, kind of leap over that, so to speak, and just connect with someone on a deep level and just ignore whatever that is. So that was what was coming up in a more introspective type of way. This is more the type of reading that I give to clients when somebody wants a professional reading from me. This is usually more of the type of information that I give. But as I do this reading, I'm going to get more and more into more, I guess, political type of information, I guess you could say. So the next thing I was seeing on an emotional level that he's kind of putting things off, like as far as his emotions, not really doing what he wants to actually do. There's this definite cold detachment there with him. And this is due to him suppressing his emotions throughout his entire life, like a very long past history. This has to do with what I was just saying earlier. I saw a picture of him looking at his watch, and it's like he's waiting for something like a very important business meeting. Very important. I was getting very important people here, and this is like more important than what you may be thinking. And this is causing him to become a cog in the system, so to speak. Like he's kind of turned himself into a tool, so to speak. And there's this sense of desperation, like very desperate, like almost as if he's working with the mafia, and if he does the wrong move, he's gonna get shot or something like that. It's like very, very tight, this desperate energy about him, for sure, within his emotional sector. When I asked what a next step for this would be for him, what I got was for him to throw a birthday party for someone. And this isn't necessarily so literal that like that's going to be specifically the thing he needs to do, but that type of thing to kind of, again, very similar to what I was reading previously about focusing on someone else and him being able to throw a party for someone else to celebrate something other than the serious work that he's doing, will kind of help him in some sense. Like the saying, all healing is self-healing. On some level, you could say there's truth to that. Next thing I was reading was that he actually does have this ability to laugh and enjoy life and enjoy the moment and really party. And I do see that actually, despite what I was just saying. But there's also this sense that he's, even if he is partying and celebrating, it's almost like there's a sense that he's under surveillance. And I saw a picture of like military guards like lined up, like a big line of them, and it was as if they're just always there watching him. And this may not necessarily be literal, this maybe more of a metaphor, but I think there could be a little bit of crossover between both of those, literal and metaphor. And what I was getting with it is that he's got this contract that he's working with. And I'm not talking about so much a spiritual contract, although I do think there's a spiritual contract as well. But I think this is such a profound spiritual contract that it is actually literally like a in-body contract, like physically, like not just his spirit made a contract, but his body consciousness, the consciousness that is within his body as well, has made a contract with top secret individuals, top secret meetings, secretive individuals, making secret plans, making business deals. This is not the government so much, but there's a very militant aspect to it. It's kind of quasi-government, if that makes any sense. I'm getting the sense that he's part of a bigger plan to connect others into some sort of economic plan. I did specifically see him. It was like a vision of him with. It was like he had this piece of paper and it had people's names and information on it. He was folding it up into a paper airplane and throwing it. And what that meant for me was that he's gathering information, kind of personal information. And by personal, I don't mean like personal information. I just mean like statistical information. He's gathering information and he's kind of using that information, and I don't want to say necessarily that he's selling information to corporations, although that could be what this is about, but something along the lines of he's taking people's information and he's, it's here and he's got it and he's throwing it to somewhere else. And it's specifically, there's a target where it's going. And that's part of the contract here. I do get that he is in charge, but he's also taking orders at the same time. So, I mean, he's in charge of what he's doing, but he's working within a contract of some sort. This is it kind of reminds me of how you can have like the scientist in captivity is kind of, he's just working as a scientist, but he's kind of working under the captivity of some group he doesn't necessarily like. Although it's not quite that extreme, but that's kind of the gist. So I also get, when I tap more into like who he is on an individual level, like what he identifies as, I see him as he's kind of like Superman. He identifies in that way. I saw this auric of his auric field, very orange red, very passionate, heat, almost like fire, and he's very, very driven. I mean, that you could probably tell that. You could assume that probably, but I was definitely seeing that in his auric field. And there's just no, like, failure is no option to him. And there's this hidden underlying, like, anger, and it's like he's fueling this anger, like this frustration, maybe that's a better word. He's fueling his frustration of things not working out the way he wants them to. And it's like he's able to fuel it and manifest it and kind of use that energy. But it's not necessarily what you want to do. I'll explain that, because he feels like he's invincible, but it's like he's kind of possessed by this desire to succeed. And I saw that actually as a picture of him, like, with world dominance on some level. And I saw there's some dark energies um, around him that they want to take away the joy of, you know, the experience of life and replace it with this just cold, dead seriousness. And I was reading that in him earlier, and so I think this is kind of contributing to that, but also kind of attracted to him because of that, and able to kind of get into his space, so to speak, because of that. I'll get a little more into that, but um, for now I want to move on to when I asked what a next step would be for him for this, how he can, get his space back from these kind of darker energies. And what I got was a picture of him playing basketball, which is kind of weird, but it made perfect sense to me actually with the cognition that came with it, which was he's playing basketball to, it's like a friendly competition, and he's able to focus his mind on something else, and have a goal well, he's driven to succeed in, but this goal isn't so overpowering. It's not like life or death, and it's not like this battle for like world domination. It's just like a friendly competition. So allowing himself to be in a situation like that really lets him step out of all that energy. And no, that's what it does. It allows him to step out of that energy. So that's more of what he could use. That's what I was getting. Um, Moving on, I saw him kind of. It was kind of funny. He was he was standing there, and it was like a woman was talking to him, and he's like, and it was like he couldn't even like handle what she was saying. He was annoyed with other people's communication towards him, and it was as if he was surprised by their stupidity or like impressed by how stupid they were, you know. And that's the general attitude type of vibe I was getting. It was as if he was like not perplexed, like how could they think that, but more like how could they think that? Like how stupid could you know? Like um, I definitely got that this kind of creates this internal introverted internal dialogue, and it kind of makes him very introverted because he kind of feels separate from everyone else in in that manner. um, and it creates his communication, it makes his communication very delayed with delayed witty responses that kind of like he kind of gets, you know, goes inside and like becomes very introverted, and then like kind of comes up with like some witty response that kind of comes out later. And so when I was asking what would be a good next step for him for this, I got more private time spent with others so he can just connect with people on a soul level or spirit level, whatever you want to call it, or either one. And so get out of this like judgment, and be able to really kind of see people deeper for who they really are rather than just the surface levels of what they may think, and you know, get to connect with people on a deeper level seems to be missing from his life. I also got that he was very um, kind of narrow focused with his view, um, but very intricate and thorough with his ability to perceive the world around him. And I saw him obviously juggling like math and science, but also kind of taking on the teacher role um, within that, within the math and science, being a teacher on some level. This could be within his business. Maybe he just has to teach people what he's thinking in his head. I don't know, something like that. I also get that he's way too caught up in work. Not to be judgmental, but I should just say he's very caught up in his work. And on some level, this causes him to miss the bigger picture. And I don't know what the thing was with birthdays was, but I saw him missing a birthday for whatever reason. It was like he just kind of ignored it. This has to do with the female birthday, like his wife. I don't know if he has a wife, something like that, female companion, and just this sense of kind of ignoring things that aren't within that, you know, narrow focus that he's honed in with that target. And I get that he has good intentions, but he kind of gets carried away and just, tunnel vision. I get that he's overworked, and on a spiritual level, this creates underdeveloped spirituality. So, in some sense, he's a deer in the headlights when he comes in contact with his higher self. It's almost like he's petrified by the thought of his higher self because he's just so caught up in everything else, that aspect, that factor isn't really a main factor in his life. I saw him kind of in his head looking up at the clouds, kind of like, thinking, kind of missing things going on around him, and then him really needing to kind of like get out of his head and like look down at the ground and look around and notice who's around him. And specifically, a woman was showing up, and I got this sense that he's just kind of ignorant, like a baby, like, in the way that a baby just kind of, when it comes to being in contact with his higher self, he's like a baby that just is kind of like petrified and doesn't really know what to do because of this disconnect and kind of being possessed by his possessions, so to speak, or whatever he's been doing kind of took over, everything. So when I asked, does he really think aliens don't exist? Because he talks about how he doesn't believe aliens exist. And this is related to him being like a baby as well. And there's too much fear for him to even care necessarily about that. He's under so much pressure from these contracts that he has with these people, and he's too scared to want to know, really. Like, there's a lot of fear here, behind the scenes going on. He thinks he must stick to this plan unwavering, and there's this sense that he's actually under some sort of threat on some level. And on some level, he's not sure what to believe himself. He's confused. There's a little bit of compartmentalized information, and he's a little bit traumatized on some level. So, who does he have contracts with? Who are these people who have contracts with? So, what I got was that these people, what came to my mind, and it isn't necessarily exactly these same people, but what came to my mind as kind of representation of the types of people, were people from the World Economic Forum, and this is like the people behind the Great Reset, basically, big players in the economic chess game, if you want to call it that. And I saw them again represented as like kings on thrones, and they have lots of access to secret technology and secret information. And I was definitely getting that there's a lot of psychological manipulation going on with them and just the world and people around them, coming from them specifically. So I get the sense that on some level, Elon Musk has accepted this level of corruption on some level that he's, working with and forced to be around. So when I asked what his next step could be for this, I saw him, and this is for him, this isn't necessarily like what's ethical or just, this is just like what's the next step for him, what would be a way for him to kind of clear out all this negativity. And what I saw was him flicking away news reporters and journalists. Like, it was like metaphorically, he's like flicking them away to find private time to connect back to his inner world and his imagination, being a big factor here, without the external demands consuming his headspace and his space all around him. All these external demands kind of took on demonic energies and kind of attracted that type of energies to him as well, as I was reading earlier. I was talking about earlier. So quiet time with loved ones creates a connection to the pure and curious parts of him again. And it sounds like that is just really necessary for him. When I looked into what his future may hold for him, what I got was he's kind of just recklessly throwing everything he has. And I saw it like these are projects, and it's like he's chucking them up with the sky as high as he can, and then he turns around and walks away. It's like he doesn't even care, and he's just kind of doing this on repeat. And these are like the different corporations and plans he's making, different projects. Some of them miss and some of them are a hit, but the point is he's building them all up and then throwing them. And it's like there's this coordination with them where they all kind of synergistically hold each other up. And even if some miss, he's not planning on all of them hitting. He's planning on getting enough of them to the point where some of them may miss, but the ones that hit, there'll be enough of them that build up, and they all kind of hold each other up in place. And so that's kind of like his plan. I do see him taking very big risks, which is no surprise, but I see that continuing. But these risks are very calculated on some level where they all kind of add up, which actually makes them not as risky, if that makes any sense. And I do see him being much more modest in the future once all these plans are like thrown, so to speak. That's the way I saw it, at least symbolically. And what came to my mind was a saying, shoot for the stars, and even if you miss, you will still land in the sky. And I'm not sure if that's exactly how the saying went, but that was me kind of paraphrasing it, at least. So all of his targets won't be met, but enough of them will be met to create a solid foundation. And then from there, I saw him really celebrating and going into more of his party mode and really kind of going where he needs to get, which he could actually kind of go straight there right now, but he's, so caught up in everything that I don't. It's more like something in the future that he's looking forward to. Of course, he could change that at any moment, of course. But I see him partying once everything kind of starts connecting up and his plans kind of all fuse together. He will continue the maintenance and improvement, but I don't see him just continuing to make one project after another project. Like that's kind of, he's done a lot already. And I do see him making more projects to connect up with this, but I don't see him continuing to do that continuously. I do see him reaching this point where they all connect up and he's got this firm foundation, which then he'll maintain. So to sum all this up, he's working with corruption on some level in order to create more freedom from the corruption that he is helping along the way. So it's kind of confusing. I do see this technological, economic evolution, if you want to call it that, that he's kind of creating. I do see it being a gift to humanity and being helpful to humanity. I've heard other things, and I do see it ultimately being a gift to humanity, a good thing. Although, and some people say it's a Trojan horse, so I'm not specifically saying that what he's working towards, the end goal, is a Trojan horse. Although there is a bit of a Trojan horse because of the contracts or the people, organizations he's made these contracts with. Contracts, if maybe they're not literally a contract written out in legal document, but he's made some sort of deal with these people who are more corrupt. So does the end justify the means? I don't know. And I'm not going to answer that for you. I'm not here to, necessarily answer that question. I try and remain neutral throughout my reading. So you can go ahead and answer that question if you'd like. You can tell me what you think if you feel the need to. So this went on for 30 minutes after all, so this went on much longer than I meant for it to go on. So if you want to book a private reading, you can do so at psychictide.yolasite.com. I will leave the link to that below this video, so check out my website, see what services I have. I would do hour-long readings for $80, or I also do shorter times for less money. I also do energy healings, and if you just have like one question or 3 questions or however many questions you want, you just want me to answer the question, I can actually do that as well through text or email, so you don't even have to book a reading with me. That's called the written reading, which is also a great option. I provide at least a couple paragraphs for each question you may ask. So check that stuff out. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you made it all the way through this video, thanks. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Have a great day.